Okay, tonight I'm planning to paint a gentleman who's fishing at the bar at the end of the Hokitika, at the end of the river at Hokitika. So he's way out on the in the distance. I took a photograph with a telephoto lens. He's a brave gentleman. The Hokitika bar is renowned for shipwrecks and for being dangerous. So he was out there. No obvious sign of any fish, but well, maybe he had several there, but there was no creel, no storage device, no bag, no nothing, and no obvious signs of fish. But maybe he just enjoyed being out at the furthermost reaches of the beach at Hokitika. And I picked this brush up, having not used it for a while, and thinking, oh, that's one of my nice brushes. It's not behaving at all well. And the bristles are separating out as though they are having a big fight with each other. It's not mattering a lot for the sky, but I'd kind of prefer if it wasn't behaving like that. So let's see if we can convince it to behave a little bit better. The other thing about this brush was that because I'm painting sea, a number of the areas on the sea are fairly green, and I washed the brush out. And when I washed the brush out, the colours it contained would have been absolutely perfect for the sort of underneath the waves areas. But what I'm going to do now, I think I'll skip this bit of sea, which is fairly blue, just underneath the sky there, because I don't want the colours running into each other. And just see if I can tidy up that little edge there, so that we don't have oh, yuck, a piece of white. Alright, so that means therefore that I will then try and work on this section here, which will have some of that green that I found on the brush, and I will no doubt be completely unable to replicate. Oh, so it's gone to a very spring green, the mixture I'm making at the moment. See if I can bring it down to somewhere you can see. Just clean off a bit of the palette, so that we've got a place we can actually see the colour of the paint. So it's kind of getting towards the sort of colour I want. Of course I want more paint than that, but bit more blue. I don't normally obsess about getting exact colours, but I guess that one has spent enough time at the seaside to feel that the colour of waves is something that we're used to seeing. This is really more the colour at the bottom edge of the wave that I've got, so I'll paint that bottom edge and then hoping that this brush is cleaner, I think it is, I'll paint in some, or try to, it's actually quite a narrow gap that I'm dealing with here, paint in some water above it so that the paint that I've applied will flow up in the sense of going up towards the horizon, which at the moment is down on, well, down at an angle on my picture. It's not too bad in terms of variation in green towards the top of a wave. I think that could just about work. And there's going to be some white water at the top of where I'm currently applying the brush. And in fact the area underneath the white water is a bit shaded, so let's darken that. Alright, let's stop at that point before we ruin it. So now there's a bigger wave here with again some white water in that location. This is bluer water generally than the front of the wave, so the front of the wave is towards us, whereas this is reflecting the sky a bit more. So here we're seeing light coming through the water, here we're seeing light reflected off the water. So let's put down a bit of water to enable the brush to, sorry, the paint to move a bit, and go around the white edges of the wave. So that's smooth, and there's a bit here where the water isn't quite as green because it's flatter rather than the sharp edge of a piece of water that's sticking up in front of the other section of bluey water. Sure that was very clear. It's not spreading quite as easily as I wanted it to. I'm going to spend time cutting in around this gentleman's head and hat and shoulders. So there's not a lot of time to spare when you're painting a watercolour. You're working against, if not the clock, you're working against the drying of the paint. And in fact I haven't really made up enough of that colour. One of the big attractions of my bottles of paint is that you have a large supply of the colours in those bottles, but if you need, as I do on this occasion, to mix the paint and try and spread it evenly, it's a good idea to have more than you think you're going to need, because you end up running out. In fact, that's exactly what's happened to me. So a bit of poor planning on my part. So mix up some other paint. That's probably about right. So we want some. I mean, this is where the wave is curving over. So I want that to be a bit darker, maybe a little bluer at that point. And this is where the wave is falling. So again, this is covered over by the white water above it. So we'll darken that area as well a bit. And there probably, and there, and coming in, joining up with that. So we get various different colours at various points. We don't want we don't like the way this brush is misbehaving. So we don't want the colour to just stop when it hits this gentleman's head. So carry it through on the other side. That would look very artificial. It's better. So that's. Let's see, this is not really wet enough for the paint to flow the way I want it to. Take a bit of a risk here by putting more wet liquid in above it, which I'm hoping will allow the paint on this side to flow and not to form blooms going out in the other direction, which is a risk. And well, I'll have to keep an eye on it and see if I can stop them if they occur, which they're bound to do. Alright, let's go back and darken underneath this wave again, because that hasn't darkened as much as it ought to. So we haven't got a bloom yet. Am I going to be lucky? Well, let's just hope, shall we? Are you hoping? Bit of a shadow from that bit of the wave that's coming forward, and maybe here as well. Alright, stop while you're not behind. Now, it's not blending as well as one might hope, so let's see if we can convince there to be a bit of blending going on in this region, which I think is mostly just working, just removing paint. It is softening it a little bit though, isn't it? So I think we'll stop at that before it completely destroys the universe. Something I'm always worried about doing when I'm painting. I'm worried about completely destroying the universe. And there's some green up in the next section. In amongst the blue, so I'll put in the green, and then if I'm quick enough, some bluer other paint that should, I hope, blend without too much obvious difference in colour, just enough to tell us that there's something going on. And shall we allow there to be a bit of white water there? And it's really a fairly smooth section in between the waves, and we want that to come down right to the edge of this big green wave, so that now, and it's coming over there as well. That colour is part of the effect. So I've got a bit of a hard edge there, which I don't really want, but I'll mess around with it too much, I'll make it too dark, so let's just leave it as it is. Don't think I want to create more white water. It doesn't do too much harm. Alright, so it's probably darker than I really want, so let's lighten it a bit. I've had a certain watery flow to it. You do things and then you go over them with something else and immediately you lose the effect that you thought, oh, that was nice, and it's gone. That isn't too bad. And I think we can probably do the green, sorry, not the green, the blue, up near the horizon now. I might just bluify that a bit more. Ooh, too much. Get at it quickly before the colour settles into the paper. It's very dark, isn't it? So I'll be turning the paper around and around so that I can do the two edges, the horizon edge. I want the paint to go right up to the horizon edge, which I haven't actually managed to do along here. And I should be doing this against a straight edge of some sort, because the horizon is, if nothing else, supposed to be horizontal. I only sketched that horizon in freehand when I did the layout for the painting, so I really ought to have got over the straight edge. But it doesn't look as though I'm doing that, does it? And let's bring that down there. No, I don't know quite, because I deliberately left the top edge of that wave fairly light. Yeah, I think that's still okay. Let's try and blend this bit here though. It's a bit light and separated into two distinct colours, which I didn't particularly want. So that horizon, he says, looking at it carefully, as though he's sighting on a piece of 2x4 to see if it's got any twists in it. That horizon is not perfectly flat, but I think we'll get away with it. Okay, so I'm going to leave that as it is. There's not as much blue in there as I wanted, but never mind. So now we come further down and try and do some of the sea around the fisherman. And again, because that's reasonably flat, it's a lot of it is quite blue, but I don't want the colour of the paint directly, because it's really rather insistent. So let's dilute it a bit. Let's just go over the reel, I think, and the rod, because they can go in dark later, and the brush is a bit too wet really to be doing dry brush. Just what I was expecting was going to happen, so let's try and squeeze some paint out of it, so that we can try and indicate water that's frothy. So there's just some white water in this region. Now this is going to be kind of awkward to indicate frothy water around the detailed parts of the shape. It's not so bad along his back here. Well, I'm not doing a very good job of it. It's not so bad along the back, because you can just lay the brush down against the shape of the body, but it's more difficult when the head and the, in particular in between the arms. I don't think I'll do very much there at all. Just pretend that it's frothy water there. Okay, so it's going to be quite a lot of frothy water around the end of this stony spit. And there's more water down here, and that's a little bit stiller. This is a piece of Saunders Waterford paper, and the Saunders Waterford watermark is showing through because of this way that I'm doing the dry brush. We're going to get a hard edge there in the middle of the sea, damn it. And I was really rather taken by the way that he has his foot up on a rock, just making himself as comfortable as possible. Whether or not I'll be able to quite show that. There's the material of his shorts, and there's his leg. Try and cover over that watermark so it's not quite so intrusive. So we're trying to indicate some three-dimensionality to this white water by making it not white. So that's the sort of thing I have in mind. It's just too stark. That's a bit better, I think. And bottom edges tend to be darker because they're folding right over, so they're not very well lit. Okay, and I might just try to indicate some structure on the bottom of this, but let's not let it get too dark, so we'll just yeah, that seems to have three-dimensionalised at least this part of it, not too badly. I think think that'll do. Maybe I'll just... It's difficult to tell which parts of a painting need to be given detailed treatment. I guess we're all so familiar with looking at waves that they need to have the right sort of colours associated with them. Alright, so that, I think we'll leave the sea at that. And let's see if we can put a bit of dry brush in for the stony section. Oh, before we do that, just a little bit of white water coming in there onto the stony section. I want to give some structure to, because I think it might be quite difficult after I've done the stones, if indeed I can prevent the stones from going over that area anyway. Don't want quite so much dark on there. The stones are catching the sun, and it's made a bit of different colour into there. I mean, they are sort of greyish blue, but it's nice to have a different colour from the sea. So we're using the edge of the brush, and doesn't have a lot of paint on it. At the moment I'm getting a few streaks going horizontally across the page, which it's not bad, but it's not quite what I want. So I'll start going in the other direction. That section hasn't worked out too badly. So the gentleman who is fishing in the sun, which is why he's wearing a hat, which means that he's also casting a shadow. And he's casting a shadow behind him, which is to our right. So we will put a bit of a shadow on the shingle. Sounds like the title of a murder mystery, doesn't it? Shadow on the Shingle. I think that's all we need for his shadow. Now, the next thing is that he is, to a large extent, silhouetted. So maybe I'll draw the blackest thing about him, which is his t-shirt, his singlet. So he's wearing a black singlet. Now let's do the the rod and reel. I think different brush for this. A rigger. Brush that's actually designed for drawing fine lines, although it never seems to carry quite enough paint. If you see what I mean. I'm now scared it's got too much paint on it. Oh no, we seem to be getting something reasonable there. It's a very thick rod towards the this end, so let's just take off some of that paint in order to narrow it down a bit. And maybe broaden the handle a bit as well. Okay, I'm inclined to give that a bit of a rest and stick it up on the wall and see if I like it. Okay, I had a look at the painting and I decided that the difference between that green and this light blue is a little bit too great, and also that there's too much light colour in this part of the wave. I mean, you do get light shining through the wave, but I think it's gone down too far and maybe it's a bit too light, so I'm going to put a blue wash over this the underside of this wave. So let's wet the paper, which is my usual way of going about things. I don't very often do a traditional wash in which you just apply paint from your brush, because it just doesn't seem to me to be, or for me it doesn't work as a way of getting an even layering of paint, and I find that allowing the paint to diffuse into the water that's on the paper is a much more effective way of producing a I can move around the green that's already there. I've picked it up with the brush, but that's okay. Much more effective way of getting a nice even coverage, especially because when you're dealing with reasonably large surface area, which this is, there's not very much in the way of complicated shapes, but there is just around the fisherman. It's easy for the paint to dry before you're ready for it to do so. So here goes, as they say, nothing. Yeah, that's not too bad, I think. So put a bit of blue on the brush before I started wetting the paper, and now, having got that darkish blue down, I'll dilute the paint on the brush a bit, and still a bit strong. And move it up into the rest of the surface of this wave, and I might just take a bit up into the other part over the horizon of the wave, if you can allow me to use that word, because this there's a bit of smooth water. This section here is where you can see the green wave against the blue background, but just in this section here there is the colour of the wave behind coming through, so I'm going to just add some little bits of blue to there to try and produce some continuity, and also lock that slightly. Not quite so strong. And let's just do something there. And these shadow areas from the top of the wave need now to be re-emphasized, I think, particularly just in there. Alright, let's stop there, but I think, do we need to do something around this hat where the paint seems to be drying in a differential fashion, and we want to try and even that out. Oops, you do that. Stop, I think, before you ruin the thing completely. And I think that's integrated the colours a little bit better. Alright, again, let's just leave it at that point and allow it to vegetate for a while, or allow me to vegetate for a while I look at the painting. But I think that'll probably do. Righto, good night, and we'll see you tomorrow.